I wanted to, got it. One other thing I wanted to say, and I kind of wanted to maybe hear what the group had to say about this, and if you guys have noticed it, but we've been looking at customers' bills lately, and comparing them current versus last year at this time, and we have seen a major uptick in the cost per kilowatt hour for our customers, which obviously is improving paybacks on projects. And I was curious to know if you guys had looked at any of your customers' bills and seen similar results. Then no.
I was going to let other people speak. Anybody?
Yeah, our office building here is I think Teresa noted the consumption went down and the cost went up by like, what was it, Teresa, 20% or something crazy? 23%?
Yeah, our Jim, our building was the first one I looked at. Because somebody mentioned something about it, and I thought, because I hadn't really looked at it for a little while and updated our rates, and yeah, so we looked at ours first, and then we started looking at a lot of other people's, and yeah, so we saw the same thing with our building.
So it's the KW. Where did you go kind of line item by line item on the bill to see what exactly is higher?
I didn't. I just did I think it's me personally. I think it's really hard to try and go line item by line item because there's so many different riders and different things that factor into it that I just take kind of a holistic look at it, and I look at how many kWh did we consume and what was our bill rate basically, and I just divide that out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, if you I guess one thing to look for, not so much to look at the dozens of items, but just the service facility or whatever they call it, the flat rate of providing any service to the building, has that's a fixed rate, has that gone up appreciably, not tied to the usage?
I don't know if that's gone up. That you're talking about, it's like, I don't know, usually it's like $25 or something like that on the exactly bill or something like that. I'd have to look at it to see if that went up.
I mean, assuming that hasn't changed, then it's the variable costs that have gone up. I did not know about that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, I think.
Is that because, I mean, this is your energy bill from Excel that you guys are talking about?
Yeah.
The electric side only, though.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though,
gas prices are way up.
Taken off. Yeah.
So our electric bills, homeowners are seeing that too. And
gas is for sure.
Yeah. So even though it's gas, you still use gas to supply electricity.
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's because of the gas pricing more than anything.
I would say there's,
like Anne has told us that.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And we could dig into it a little further. I just did some kind of high level looking at it though, and thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Oh. Does anybody else have any insights on that at all? Or seen anything? Now I kind of want to go back to old customers and do some bill comparisons over the last couple of years to recent. I do that because when I do proposals, I will I put out what my estimated not just kilowatt hour savings will be, but also what the cost dollar amount savings will be, and I just say, hey, it'll only get better if rates go up, but it requires the follow through and circling back and getting that data. So that's good to know. I'd like to know what if there is sort of what the overall rule of thumb would be for a kilowatt hour rate for under 400 kW customers. How that might have changed.
Yeah, I don't have an exact figure for you on it, but I'm assuming that'd be kind of that SG rate. But
does that give any credence to any of the questions in your survey that when the gas prices go up, then they see the impact, and if they had more savings from your lighting solutions, it'd be less impactful, the gas prices? Is that a sales argument discussion or something?
You mean with Excel that, I want to make sure I understand the question, but I mean, I definitely think it bolsters our,
Mhm.
you know, efficiency argument and why, you know, this is good for customers and good for Excel for sure. You know, like, you know, we can implement more of this. You can definitely reduce some of the impact of rising rates for customers,
Right,
right?
Yeah, just a quick math on the building here. Our electric went up 4.4%, but our gas went up 29%.
Yeah.
Mm,
You know, it's not intuitive, you know, I mean, most people aren't thinking about gas when they think about their electricity, and they're hearing about nat
exactly,
gas
that's
prices
my
going up.
point.
But we've
Yep.
converted so many power plants to nat gas that that it's this, you know, indirect smack in the face cost that probably a lot of people never anticipated.
Jim, was that January to January, Jim?
That was no, well, it's December to January, mid-December to mid-January.
Mid-December of 2020,
21.
2021 to now.
Uh,
So that's only a month's difference,
no,
right?
I'm sorry. The billing period was December, January, but I'm comparing it to December, January a year ago.
Okay,
okay.
okay, gotcha. And did you just do like a high level, you know, your total bill divided by
Well,
your KWH, or how did you do it?
It tells you what you consumed per day last year and then this year, and then gas last year, this year. So it's just a percentage of the change in consumption, which I subtracted because that was a drop. And then I figured out the cost per unit.
Okay.
So that's sort of a net increase in dollars, 29%. But actually, Patricia, you know, if you save electricity, you don't get that waste heat, and so you have to use more gas.
Right.
If you're more efficient with your lighting, you actually use a little more gas in the winter.
There's a little
Yeah.
penalty to it, obviously.
Okay,
But less electricity in the summer when you're running that AC.
That's right.
hmm.
I'm just curious, though, Jim, if you were to divide your bill from last year and your KWH by your bill from this year and your KWH, you know, what does that give you, just out of curiosity, if you don't mind?
It would be the same percentage, but I'll just tell you in dollars, it is.
Because when I did it on ours, for the record, it was, I got to look at it. It was like north of 10%. It went from being like, let's say it went from being like 9 to, I don't have the figures in front of me. It went from like 9 to 10 point something or other.
This is, you know, this is pretty heavily weighted with the base charge, because we don't use a lot of gas, but or a lot of electricity either, for that matter. Anyway, it's 13.4 cents is the wrong math. And it would have been so times 0.71, it would have been 9.5 cents.
So that's what I mean. Like those differences, there's got to be there. You know, there's something else going on. There's some new riders, like the TEP riders on there, I think, and some things like that. And
Yep.
maybe that wasn't there last year. And
Right.
so it's fairly
Yeah.
substantial.
Yeah, but and if it's assuming it's variable and all tied to your usage, right? That, you know, it's an effective cost increase no matter what.
Right.
Yeah, there's a fuel surcharge, which I suspect is, you know, very dynamic and probably the main cause, right? It's not the meter charge or anything like that. It's that fuel adjustment clause.
Right. Yeah. And that gas went up, so they tacked that one on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Interesting, Scott. Yeah, thanks for bringing our attention to that. Well, yeah, I mean, it just bolsters our case. So, you know, okay. Anything else, Scott, you wanted to throw in? Update?
No, I did. Excel did ask us about controls. I was going to say Excel did ask us about controls the other day. And so I thought that was a good sign that they reached out to us and wanted some feedback on that. And so we, gave them our input, but I would also like that this information to come from our group as well. But they were soliciting some feedback on costs and things like that with regards to controls and what's out there and things like that. So it sounds like they're looking already at potentially increasing rebates for controls. And so if we can come to them, if that's something that the group has decided that we want to try and push for, I think that the time is ripe for it.
I think having this survey with as many respondents as possible would be helpful and have a little influence. Then if they're reaching out to people, that's a good sign.
Yeah, did they tell you, Scott, who they were reaching out to? And on what basis? Was it based on, firms that have submitted for controls rebates in the past?
I think it was just folks that they knew, like we know, I've been here for how long? Almost 18 years now, I guess. And so I've just gotten to know some of the people over there and things like that. And so I think they know that if they ask me a question, I'll usually try and answer them. So I think it was just people that have participated in their programs in the past and have been, and like I said, I've listened in on the DSM meetings and things like that. So I don't necessarily think it was like anybody specific. I think it was just people they thought they would get a response from.
Right.
Pretty much. And people that they knew were in the industry.
Did they give any indication when they're talking about controls, what they're thinking of, or did they leave it really open-ended question?
I didn't really talk. It was more of it was email, going back and forth, but it was revolved around controls. So I'm assuming that they were looking at it for that purpose of adjusting and updating their control rebates.
Cool.
Yeah, good.
So is that something, Scott, what do you think? Would it be appreciated by Excel if you were to forward the email questions that you got? Or is this sort of a private kind of off the...
I can ask them. I mean, I don't have any problem with asking them. Let me ask them though, because they sent it to us specifically.
We got a committee, a lighting committee, and there's maybe other people on the committee that would directly answer their questions if they want it. That might be the easiest way to quickly get them some feedback, from the organization, if you will.
Sure.
That is one of the things that we had talked with, like Scott, when we were talking about listening in to the roundtable meetings. So the conversation with George Work and with Mark Schoenheider about, Mark was interested in having their program managers and channel managers come and bounce ideas off of this group, off of the, with the working group. So that might be a good one. If you get feedback, then I could go to them and say, hey, do you want to have some time with our group and talk about that, since we've been doing this survey? I don't know, an idea to get a little bit more robust conversation for everybody here.
The response, they wanted it back a couple of days ago, just so you know, but I'll reach out to them and see if they're looking for more. The one thing I will say about this, and I'll try and phrase this correctly, is part of it was revolved around pricing and, what do these things cost? And I want to make sure, what we submitted I
Yeah.
factored in everything into our costs to make sure that they had a true picture of the cost of doing these things, like, commissioning it and the procuring it and design and stuff like that. And I guess I would urge folks to make sure that you're including everything in the cost of it so that we don't under sell what it costs to do this, I guess, if that makes sense.
You bet. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
well, I think the other comment would be the IECC, so the International Energy Council, the state has adopted that energy code, and for lighting, it requires 2-level lighting or dimming, ambient, and motion sensors. So a lot of controls are required if you touch 10% or more of the fixtures in a space. So it's getting to be, the irony is it's, has a chilling effect on retrofits because, they can't just retrofit the lights. They've got to put in all this control system or not. And if you do it the way they prescribe, it ends up doubling. Well, it ends up making it very, very expensive to do lighting retrofits. So we're working on a state building that, has the option of doing the retrofit and saving 60% of the energy, or because they don't have the budget to do the controls that are required, skipping it. So, my argument is what's better, do the retrofit, save 60%, or try to save 65% of the energy by capturing, daylight harvesting on what ends up being a very low wattage fixture after the retrofit. It just doesn't pay to put in all the controls wiring. So
Yeah. It's sort of letting the enemy of the good be the perfect, right? And it's kind of that whole thing. I would totally agree, though. Yeah, it's like you're gonna kill a project that's awesome. It's gonna save a ton of energy because, yeah.
Jim did a kind of a neat thing. They had an exception. I know in schools they may have done it in commercial spaces too, but if you were saving 50% of the energy, then you didn't have to do the controls, and that was in response to the industry saying, well, I guess we're just gonna, when we remodel the space, we won't change the lighting, which obviously wasn't their objective. So, or you got silly things where people did, part of the work every year just so they wouldn't trigger the code requirements. So,
where was that? Just where did you say?
the state of California.
Oh, California. Okay.
I wonder what Excel is going to do about fixtures that some of them have controls as part of the fixture itself. More and more fixtures are coming out with their own.
Right.
Yeah, standalone. I mean, basically standalone controls.
Yeah, simplify everything.
Yeah, that's the. I think a crux of the discussion, whether that makes more, more sense from Excel's point of view to pay more for that. If it gets you, instead of that difference between 60 and 65%, like you were talking, Jim, if a number of fixtures had these standalone controls in them that actually, you wouldn't put it, aux sensing in a room where everybody's in it all the time, but in spaces where it's less used, then you might get the 63%, on by, a lot less expensively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think well, so if we have the opportunity to talk to Excel, I mean, that's what I would talk about is the code required controls, and then maybe trying to negate the penalty cost associated with that. And, you can do onboard sensors, like you say, with brand new fixtures, but, traditionally in the retrofit business, you don't necessarily replace the fixture. You can, retrofit the fixture lamps with, or, flat panel or something like that. And
even tubes and flat panels today have accents in them.
Yeah. Those are
I know.
But I think, the retrofit itself, I mean, I always argue that, putting a kit within existing troffer makes a lot more sense than throwing away the troffer in terms of the embedded energy that went in to make the steel, throwing all that away. So where possible, we like to put in a retrofit simply because it's less total energy into the retrofit in terms of the components.
Right. I'm curious.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, Jim, like, that the point of the code and all that stuff. And, we fall into this weird gray area sometimes in the retrofit world where, a lot of times we're not pulling permits for these projects. And so they fly under the radar of that code and having to require, implementing the controls. And I just, I always think about that though, is, are we doing ourselves a disservice by not pushing that, or, are we better off, and it really does fall into this kind of gray area in the code, right? Because you're really not changing the electrical, especially when you're doing like a kit in a fixture. It's almost falls into this kind of like maintenance type conversion type area. And I was just wondering, is that something that we push harder on, or, to try and get folks to implement controls, or do we kind of leave it alone? And, like on your project, I'm sure it's a state project, so it's more visibility there and harder to.
Right. Yeah, we had to submit, but I think I can imagine, cities adopting these codes. It's like, oh, let's adopt the latest energy code. Well, that sounds good. All in favor, and they don't really think about the application. And in some cases, the application is just ridiculous. It costs, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to try to dim a fixture that you've just made to be the most efficient lighting source you can have, which is LED. And the payback, because of that, the payback of the controls, becomes 15 years. So, and then you have absurd cases like there's no exception for 2-level lighting in a bathroom. Well, guess what? There's never an application in the bathroom where you're going to want half light. Right? I mean, you're doing one thing, you need all light, and you're doing another thing, you need half light. I mean, that's just absurd. So again, taking the general premise of, geez, wouldn't it be great to adopt this energy code, but in the specific, it becomes oftentimes very uneconomical, or it doesn't even make any sense. So
Yeah, we don't want to prevent people from installing efficiencies.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't. And so I think there should be an exception. I think, like I said, like California in schools, they said, because they didn't have the budget, the budget retrofit was 100,000. Well, with the controls, it became 200,000. Okay, we won't do it. Well, all right, just do it. Don't do the controls as long as you save half the energy. And that was the sort of compromise. But I think the short of all of this, I'm sorry to burden the group with this, but I guess if we have the chance to talk to Excel about controls, I mean, I think it is a very expensive proposition in retrofits. And so I'm sure Scott was arguing for more money on controls. And that's one of the reasons, is because it is much more expensive to do it that way.
Yeah, for the record, I'm all for controls, but they have to make sense at the same time. And at the current rebate levels, they typically get value engineered right out of the project. And I think they're great. And I think the controls are great for not just for energy savings, but for usability and user comfort and all sorts of things like that. Is probably more so for those reasons than they are for like energy efficiency. Really, is they make the space, people in the space happier. But yeah, I fully believe that we need stronger rebates for them if they're going to reach higher adoption rates.
And the other thing I think is more evident with controls than it is fixtures are the obsolescence, right? I mean, we did a large project with Summit Schools, and we put in dimming, and we used LG lighting, which at the time was the biggest company that made lighting products. Well, they subsequently sold their lighting industry, their lighting business, including the controls. They no longer support it. So, they have dimming in these classrooms using a system that can't be modified. So I think you have that. I mean, you have competing technologies for controls. There's proprietary controls, And, now they're going to mesh networks and with Zigbee, which I think is, more open. And so those are good too, but, there's a lot of that issue too, where you go into, I know we did a project up at CSU and they wanted to duplicate the controls on the lighting retrofit that we did this last year with a system that was put in 2 years earlier. That's an obsolete system now.
Yeah.
But they wanted to make it the same because they don't have facilities going in building by building or floor by floor, trying to learn how to, modify the control system. So that's another little sort of wrinkle in this whole objective.
Well, I had this BlackBerry, it was state of the art.
Yeah.
And now I can't use it anymore. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the devices took a first generation phone, and I forget whether it was IR. I think it was IR from the phone, but they don't make that phone anymore. So we had to literally try to find a 5-year-old phone so that we could commission the lighting.
Garage sale somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the law of unintended consequences or whatever, and the perfect is the enemy of the good, like you're saying, Scott. So, without sort of universal design, something that's interchangeable, you can end up, with a great what was the car from Back to the Future, but
DeLorean.
Yeah, DeLorean. Thanks. Great, but now I need parts. And you're out of luck. So, what do you think we should? What do you think we should be saying to Excel about this? What would be our message?
I think my main message is that they just need to fund it higher. I agree with everything that has been said, for the record, that the serviceability of these systems can be a problem going forward. That's why we typically try and use ones that we hope are going to be around, from the big manufacturers. Although, like you said, Jim, LG, they're a monster of a company. I kind of felt like with them at one time, though, it was like, this is like this tiny division of LG, and like they could take it or leave it type situation. I think that's kind of what their attitude was towards it. But, I'm hoping that the Coopers, the Lithonia, the GEs of the world will, have their control system and be able to support it for the foreseeable future, like the Enlight systems and things like that. But it is, it's a constantly evolving, technologies are constantly evolving and changing and theoretically becoming better. But my thought on it is that they just, if they want it, they're going to have to rebate it. And if people want it, if like the state and the codes want it, then it needs higher rebates. But I don't think it's going away, I guess, is one of the main things I would say about it too, is that it's, it's kind of seems the trend that the market's going in. It's kind of the next evolution, maybe. It's definitely one of the fancier the plumbing, though, easier to clog the drain, as the old saying goes too, though, like it's just, we get maintenance people calling us all that, unlike probably a lot of you guys, a lot of our business is derived from service. So we see the end results of some of these control systems. And, the amount of different control systems out there is fairly astounding. Sometimes, like we're getting calls like from people, and I had one the other day. I'd never even heard of the system before, and we had to. It was quite a process to figure out how to service it. So,
how about if they kind of call out specific applications where controls would be best applicable, like stairwells, warehouse. Controls aren't as applicable like in schools and classrooms necessarily, because is either on being used or off not. Motion, I guess, but maybe they could boost the incentives in certain applications for controls.
I mean, I think they get used in, you know, the ones that we've installed in classrooms though and stuff, people like them is honest, is my gut feeling. You know, teachers like the ability to be able to dim their classroom lights and change the, you know, create a scene with like the whiteboard and things like that. And so, you know, like I really like them from a not like, you know, some of those applications are energy related. Some of the applications are more function related to
Right.
the process that's going on
Function.
in the application.
I could see that, you know, but that has to carry its own value.
Right.
And we're describing efficiencies generally, but no, yeah, I don't know. Controls are tough. How do you incent them? Watts reduced. How do you make sure they're going to the right spots that make the most amount of sense?
Right.
Some don't make sense.
Yeah, generally the local controls are makes the most sense, right? Instead of a central lighting system.
Right.
A lot of facilities aren't sophisticated enough. Schools have a pretty high changeover, and you know, just getting the programming the time clocks of the outside light parking lot lights go on and off at the right time is sometimes a challenge. But you know, a simple on-off sensor on the light switch in a classroom is as easy as it gets, and even those are somewhat problematic. You know, if you're taking a test and kids are moving their hands, there's not enough motion to keep them on.
Right.
And then you put an ultrasonic in there, and then the doors open and people walking by the hallway flip every light on. Classroom is there.
Or you have somebody on the toilet and the lights go out entirely and they're throwing toilet paper rolls outside the booth to try to get the lights.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, I always love aux sensors in a bathroom. That's you know, that's not terribly thoughtful for.
Well, you got to
know,
have an emergency
something.
light or something.
Right.
There was happened to be a woman's locker room, and they came back from a basketball game at 10:30 at night or something, and these two women were in the shower and the lights went out.
Oh.
They started screaming bloody murder, and you know, the order was take out the motion sensors in the locker rooms.
Yeah.
But
You know, I think I don't think we had brought this up under rebate topics at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how much experience are we having collectively replacing first generation LEDs? Like they're coming to end of life and we're needing to replace them. Anybody doing that yet? Besides just, you know, one just dies prematurely, but.
I took some working 20-year-old LEDs out of a shopping center a couple of years ago. Still working. 20 years old.
We do quite a bit of it, for the record, especially through our service division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We haven't come across it much yet, and unless it's you know, we've got an oddball fixture we need to replace, but we haven't found any end of life yet in our projects.
I think we're, you know, a few years away. I saw some webinar about this topic, but you know, there's going to be this wave happening, and we're probably a little early for it. But you know, at the moment, there's no rebate available for it unless it's one of the, you know, an instant rebate kind of thing. But for most stuff, there's nothing there. And I guess, you know, Excel's argument would be, well, what else are they going to buy? There's no, you know, why should we subsidize it anymore? But yeah, I'm just kind of curious, because you know, the cost doesn't go down unless it's under warranty. The cost doesn't go down for a new product to replace an old product. So, you know, but then where I was thinking about going with that was that, you know, the next generation of stuff hopefully is going to be more efficient than something that's 20 years old or 10 years old. You know, things are much more efficient now. So there are additional cost savings to be had. And I guess would it make sense to toss that out to Excel? Just that, you know, if you go from having a a 50-watt fixture down to a 30-watt fixture that's doing the same thing, do they throw, should we seek to have some help for the customer?
Let's see, when we changed out T12s and went to T8s, they went from 40 to 32, right, to tube. So that was an 8-watt reduction, and they were very excited about that. Many of the LED light tubes in the ceilings are 18 watters. Now with the higher lumen efficiency, they could be 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you talking about, Mike, are you talking about specifically on custom or prescriptive? Because for prescriptive programs, regardless of what is existing, what the incumbent technology is, the incentive would be the same. So whether you are replacing a first generation LED or a fluorescent tube, if a LED product is available, is eligible for prescriptive rebates, then
is Dan? Is that right? Is that not?
I thought it specified fluorescent and HID
hold
systems.
On, now I gotta hold on. Let me pull up Excel's prescriptive rebate, and now I'm gonna find out, because I just made an idiot of myself with a.
Can you explain that again really quick? I'm just trying to capture it.
Sure. So
prescriptive rebate is like you get $1, like $10 for an LED bulb, right? And Excel doesn't care whether that LED bulb is replacing an A lamp, or like a an incandescent lamp, or a first generation LED lamp.
Yeah, there's
in their rebate calculations and their savings calculations, there's an assumption that a certain percentage will be replacing fluorescent or incandescent, a certain percent will be replacing LED. But if there are specific requirements, I'm just thinking of my experience implementing prescriptive programs, is that we typically there's not a lot of verification that happens about what the incumbent technology that's being replaced is, right? A customer or program participant will submit an application and say, we bought 1,000 fixtures and your prescriptive rebate is $50 per fixture, so we get $50,000.
Yeah, if I can interrupt real quick, I just pulled it up based on the most recent prescriptive form I have. It says, for linear ambience, its rebates are based on replacement of fluorescent ambient fixtures. For troffers, it's the same thing. For high bays, it's replacement of HID or fluorescent fixtures with LED kits. So it, unless that has changed, you do have to replace old stuff with LED. It doesn't count for prescriptive.
And tubes are that way too. On the tubes, it's got to be a fluorescent tube.
Right.
Just back to your question, I think it'd be nice if they did that. I'm not sure that they'll be willing to do that, though, because it kind of be like free ridership, right? Because what else are you going to do at that point? Like, hey, my LEDs are going out. Okay, well, you're going to have to replace them. What are you going to replace them with? You're going to replace them with LED, right? So it's like,
yeah,
you don't have a choice. And in those circumstances, Excel's typically pretty reluctant to provide a rebate.
It does hit back on a topic that we had talked about. Should there be like a bonus for a more efficient fixture, like a DLC premium, or however we want to define it, fixture that is much more efficient than standard 100 to 115 or 20 lumens per watt, which those fixtures cost more. So anyway, I didn't mean to digress too much, but Dan, thanks for bringing that up and making me check. Does that square then with you?
Yeah, I mean, if those are the rules, I'm not familiar with Excel's specific program rules, but I know for programs that I have experience implementing with distributors, that You know, and it's a different delivery channel, so it's slightly different. You know, we're not typically verifying the incumbent technology because the scope and the scale of the projects are so large, it would just be so cumbersome for the applicant
Think of the
to
rebates
verify
they give
what was
through,
being replaced.
think of the instant rebates they give through Lowe's and Home Depot. When people buy those products off the shelf, the rebate's already in there and they don't know what they're using.
What they're using. They can use it for outdoors. They'll never know. Right.
And Dan, to Dan's point, they tell you up front they're not going to inspect the building for prescriptive. So it does surprise me that they're asking questions about what are you replacing? But
oh, do they do now? I thought Excel always reserves the right to do an audit.
Yeah,
of a building.
they do like 5%. They inspect.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the percentage is, but they're supposed to inspect like it's somewhere around like 5 or 10% of
Right. And
buildings.
so,
They've called us before and said, hey, we're going to go out and inspect this.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of those calls.
so technically, you're supposed to leave some, you know, one sample of the old stuff behind. You can always game that, I suppose. If they find you're gaming it, then you're out. But
that's a bit of a shame because they do, again, provide all these instant rebates through these massive manufacturers. Why do they make us jump through these additional hoops?
yeah. And they can always do, you know, sort of usage verifications and trace it back that way and say, wait a minute, you know, if you really replace this with old technology with this, you should be saving 50, 60 or whatever %, and nothing's changed. So
They don't make Home Depot do that.
I think it's part of their, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, Patricia, but it's like a net to gross ratio that they use or something like that, where it's like, they know that a certain percentage of those LED lamps are going to go towards LED replacement or, you know, they've kind of factored that into their savings equations on the upfront side of it.
I would say yes, they have to be doing that, I think, because they have to come out with that TRC, right? To prove that they are getting the savings. So
And it's totally subjective. That net to gross ratio is just,
Right.
I mean, literally they call up 10 facility people and say, you know, are you smart enough to have done this retrofit without the rebate? And the answer is, of course, yes. So, you know, therefore they're all free riders. You know, no one's going to say, no, I never, you know, without this rebate, I would never done anything. So, but I think the other thing I wanted to bring up was the, on the prescriptive, since we just looked at that form, it triggered another problem we've had where, you know, they define something as a parking garage fixture, and they'll give a certain rate for a parking garage. Well, it's a canopy fixture. It is literally the description of the fixture we're putting in the parking lot, and they disqualified it because it's a canopy fixture. And I said, no, it's in a parking lot. It's in an enclosed parking lot, 24 hours a day. We're going from this wattage to that wattage. No, the DLC rating rates this fixture and they call it a canopy fixture,
right.
which is just the most ridiculous. It's like, well, what's a stairwell fixture then? I mean, a fixture has to have stairwell in the name. You can't put a dimming LED strip fixture in a stairwell.
Or they had to have paid to have that listed in DLC under more than one category, the same fixture.
It makes no sense. It was just
right.
incredibly maddening.
Yep.
They disqualified the entire parking garage because it was a canopy fixture design that we put in the parking garage. It's just mind-boggling. So anyway, I don't know where that is, but
I agree with you on that, Jim. Yeah, that's been incredibly frustrating. We've run across that before too.
So to put that into some type of context, I'm thinking, so what I'm wondering about is, to me, that's a level up from the rebates. That seems to fall into more like processing of
Definitions.
in finishes. Yeah. So I feel like, so when we're talking about specific products and programs, but like strategic issues is about processes and transparency and goal setting and much higher level things. So it seems like it's trending that like you're saying, Jim, that it makes no sense, right? Because just of how the names of the lights are qualified. But is there a need for a more robust process to make those decisions? Like, is it a pretty common thing, or is there something about, their rulemaking around those?
Yeah, I don't know
rebates?
how that, once they come up with that rebate form, for example, and it starts with replacing a bollard, and the bollard has to be 70 watts for you to get credit to replace it with an LED. Well, we have 50-watt bollards, lots and lots and lots of them. Well, it doesn't fit into that box, so you don't get a rebate. So I don't know. I think
Is there a process that's needed to?
it is a process.
to
What it
make
is,
that a process problem that they need to enable you to submit your business case for it more easily,
Yeah.
instead of just saying, nope, it doesn't fit in the box?
yeah, they are. I know why they do it, because then they can hire people that don't have to get involved in a lot of engineering. They can just go, it's got to fit in this box. If it doesn't fit in this box, it's rejected. But they ought to have an appeal process where somebody, it can kick up to an engineer and go, okay, we're taking it from 50 watt down to 20 watts. There's absolutely no reason we shouldn't rebate that, just because, the bollard rebate starts at a lower wattage, or, whatever it's a stairwell fixture. Well, it doesn't have, it's the application is a stairwell. It's on 24 hours. It ought to qualify regardless of where your starting point is. So maybe it's just an appeal process. But
Well, that parking garage example that you gave, technically you could have probably applied through the custom rebate program. Good luck with that. But I think Scott, who's next to me on my screen anyway, that's one thing you brought up, Scott, about, it shouldn't matter, or maybe both Scotts, that payback time frame of having to be under 5 years or whatever the cutoff to qualify for a custom rebate, regardless of the energy saved. That should be, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for, and I don't know if this would solve your issue, Jim, but I'm all for a more robust custom efficiency program that rebates at a reasonable rate. Right now, I think it's kind of hilarious, the rate that I think it's $200 a KW or something right now, but a more robust program, and one that allows for paybacks beyond, I can't remember what the exact figure is. We figured it out one time. It's like 10 years or something like that. But yeah, or some sort of appeals process, or some sort of, I'm all for it, because yeah, we've run into that same thing in the past where, and like you said, Mike, it boils down to, like, they're not going to get their product DLC listed on every single application that it can potentially fit into. So, there's plenty of canopy fixtures that can work in a garage. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I think the custom program, for me, the solution would be a spreadsheet that we can use, and we put in the hours that it's running, so they can figure out, peak versus on peak benefit. The wattage, I can't even imagine what else it would be. It's kilowatt hours, and it's KW. So, and what I get when I say, well, all you have to do is you submit your project and then we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of time. And meanwhile, all you're trying to do is give the customer a proposal that says the gross cost is this, the net cost is this. Do you want to do it? I'm not going to do a bunch of engineering before they even tell me, whether they want to do it. And so an easier way to calculate what the custom rebate is, I mean, I don't know why it's a secret. Whatever their net to gross ratio is, whatever their, percentage off time, on time, whatever they want to use, they are using a calculator. They are using a spreadsheet. So why that is a secret and only Excel can do it, I think, is a big impediment to using the custom program.
Agreed. And why can Platte River Power do it? Why can Colorado Springs utilities do it, like all these other smaller utilities with less resources can somehow do it, and we can't do it through them. And it's a black box, and that's frustrated us for many years.
We got to wait for the magic letter. And most of the time it says denied.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no explanation.
Well, and to really burn you, Jim, about that parking lot example, I've looked at parking for canopy fixtures too, some of which are also listed as a parking garage fixture. So it would qualify. Exact same design of what you use, but they didn't go to the trouble of paying DLC extra money for it.
Yeah. Well, this might get to the, only 70% of their goal. If they made it a little easier in some categories, you'd probably get 100% of their goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't meet for the record, let's see, they didn't meet their custom efficiency goals either. It says custom efficiency, the product did not meet its energy savings targets for 2021. The participation in this product has been consistent throughout the year and came close to meeting targets. The product team will take a deeper look into the pipeline for 2022 to find ways to increase participation. The team will continue to increase collaboration with trade to improve customer support and help identify solutions. Sounds like a great opportunity for us to go to them.
Yeah.
So, hey,
Yeah, they can start by paying me to submit a custom rebate program because I've been so conditioned away from doing it that, give me something to make it worth my while for even doing it. Anyway.
You think we'd be reaching too far to ask for a custom calculator to be created, which could give us an approximate estimate on a custom lighting project?
Yeah,
Dude,
that's what Jim. That's what you're saying, Jim. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to give us a spreadsheet. Leave it on your website. Fine, we'll do it online. We'll plug in the stuff and then save the file as whatever, and there you go.
But make it a dollars per kW amount that makes it worthwhile too, like for the record.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. We're at the top of the hour.
I know, and I was just one really quick thing I want to say to that is that I have wondered about their piloting process. If there needs to be what I think they need is to have a quick vetting process, like a fast track, which is kind of what you guys are saying is like the solutions, but say, okay, I just need a smell test, right? I need you to say, we want to do this. We're thinking about it. Here's our quick numbers that we believe. Is this of interest? Would you likely, should we do the engineering on it or not? Will it be eligible? It's like getting a quick fast track some way answer is kind of what you're looking for, but that's the higher level request. And you guys are talking about specific ways to do it. Is that how you see that?
Yeah. I
Would
had a
be
question.
real nice when we're talking to customers to have an idea of what the rebate might be. Customers still on the fence. They have no idea.
Wait for a month.
This is bigger than lighting too and I didn't know.
That's why I bring it up.
You were gonna would other trade partners in your EEBC group through HVAC and stuff like that? I don't know what other custom measures there are besides lighting, but I'm sure there's a bunch, would other people benefit from this as well?
Absolutely.
HVAC, commercial, they've talked about this, definitely. And for 6 years, I sat literally in a meeting with 5 different companies and we all looked at the form and we were like, we can't even partner on the piloting form because it's too specific and too narrow. And then we'd spend all this time, filling it out. And we just need to get that first, is this of interest? Then we're going to check into it. But if not, we're not going to spend 20, 40 hours filling out your form with all the engineering numbers and the calculations, like you're talking about. So it seems like a bigger picture issue. Yes, that's kind of my.
So I'm hearing we're requesting to simplify somehow the custom rebate.
Yes.
I don't know why they couldn't just give us a number per kilowatt reduced in a space. I know there's a lot that goes into it and peak and off peak and everything else. And maybe that could be factored into it, but.
Right.
I would say three goals.
Difficult.
3 goals out of the custom efficiency, but from my standpoint would be simplify it, make it more robust and closer to the rebates you get through the prescriptive program.
Right.
And do away with the TRC test. If it saves energy, it saves energy.
More transparent. Yep.
All right.
All right.
Well, you know, I was, let me just say this and then we'll wrap up. But yeah, I was wondering, I don't know what Excel does to socialize or you know, rough test their you know, say the prescriptive rebate form, but I almost wanted, they should have like a team of people in the field like us who could look at the proposal and, you know, sort of stress test it and say, wait a minute, you know, to like Tim's point, what about this? Or, you know, I've got this high bay that, or, you know, that falls below 75 watts. It's, you know, it's 65 watts. Give me some rebate money for it. Don't say it doesn't qualify because it falls under your minimum threshold. That, you know, thinking through things like that. I just wonder if they could run, if there could be a team of volunteers or whatever, you know, that be willing to scrutinize their things and before they, you know, finalize it. And then we gripe about it for 2 years afterwards because, you know, they didn't think about this. It was so obvious to us.
And I was going to ask, I'm thinking about asking Excel is when they are ready to, if they will run their plan past the EBC working groups before they launch it, you know, and file it in July 1st and get feedback beforehand. So we're putting together the survey and the feedback and the things that we're thinking about it. And then also saying, hey, can, you know, if you'd like us to review it and give you feedback as well, there's kind of 2 steps, I think, we're asking for that I'm starting to think is going to be necessary. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. And I think just really quick before we go, if you don't mind, just a reminder, how do we help you guys push the survey out to more people and ask them to join the group? Would be kind of a call to action from everybody here. Do you have distributors and manufacturers? Do you have your competitors that you're friends with? Like what would it, if we sent you an email you could forward, would that be helpful as a reminder?
I think, you know, if you do, Patricia, get a chance to invite Excel lighting engineers to this Zoom call, I think you'll get a huge response in the industry for people who have the opportunity to tell their story, tell their issues. And Excel in, you know, an hour and a half would get great information. And I think it would be, you know, more meaningful for somebody in the industry to be able to actually talk to the Excel program manager than it is for them to fill out a form that comes back to an organization that maybe gets read by Excel, maybe doesn't.
Okay, that's great. I feel like there's kind of 3 legs to the stool now, you know, of how to go at it. So that's great. Okay. Any other, but sorry, I jumped in at the end there, Scott and Mike, but anything else?
I got to run, but I can definitely help get it into some of the reps' hands and folks in the industry. So I don't know if I have the latest version of the survey, but if I can get that, we can communicate after.
We'll finalize that, and then that won't be the outside of EEBC members version of the survey that goes out. That should be usable by everybody.
Okay.
Our next call is 1 month from today, also on Wednesday, the 9th of March at 4 o'clock. So what we have scheduled.
Awesome.
For me.
So hopefully we'll have a whole lot more responses by then through IER. I can't even get those.
IECRM.
Yeah, them. And if likewise, folks, you know, as Patricia was saying, if you can think of anybody else that you're in touch with, reps or distributors or manufacturers or anybody else that you think, maybe the best thing to do would be to forward their name and contact info into us, so we don't have, because Patricia, I'm thinking if we let folks forward the email out to them, we might get multiple responses from the same, then we have to clean it up on the back end. We could, you know, get that nomination, so to speak, from our members here that gets sent to us, and then we send that info out, or
I think though people-
they have the relationships, let them do
I
it.
was gonna say, I think they'll respond because of the relationship, and
Yeah.
it might be different departments, and you might get different information. I think we
Yeah,
wouldn't be good about.
that's fine. I'm good with that.
It's gonna have to be easy or they're not gonna do it.
Yes, if your friend sends it to them, they'll do it more quickly
Right.
versus I think us
Right.
sending out after they told us to send it.
Yeah. Good point.
Have we poached the Excel lighting list?
I have an old list. Yes, that is in our membership that I think we need to resend to.
They put it out online, this lighting distributor list of theirs.
Yep. So we will add that to it too.
That's true.
Awesome. Anything else, you guys?
Yeah,
I'm good. If you guys are good.
good
Oh,
deal.
Mike, let's follow up in like the next week though, and we'll talk about getting that out to the other folks and stuff.
Yeah, later this, I mean, yeah, if you don't mind,
Yeah, that'd be
tomorrow or
great.
the next day. Okay.
Okay,
Good deal.
okay.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.